In the search for a great treasure, a thief and an archaeologist join forces to unravel puzzles and get to the reward before the Germans do. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie Lupin the First from 2019. In his mansion in the suburbs of Paris, an archaeologist called Bresson keeps his diary in a book-shaped safe and gives it to his son-in-law, as well as giving the locket with the key to his granddaughter. With the two objects, the family leaves the mansion and leaves Bresson behind. As soon as they leave the place, the family passes a convoy and one of the cars turns to chase them, leaving the rest of the men to go to the mansion to finish off Bresson. On the road, the archaeologist's son-in-law realizes that they are being followed and tries to throw the other car off the road, but ends up hitting a speeding truck. After the accident, Lambert, the driver of the car that was chasing them, goes to the vehicle and takes the locket from the hands of Bresson's granddaughter, but before he can get the safe, an ordinary person arrives offering help and the man decides to flee before the authorities arrive. More than 20 years later, the Paris Museum decides to put on an exhibition of Bresson's belongings, starting with the archaeologist's diary. But before it can begin, a guard arrives with a card from the famous Lupin III, one of Europe's greatest thieves, promising to come and steal the artifact. Frightened, the museum manager removes the glass protecting the diary and asks his men to take it to the storeroom, but just as the guard is about to do so, one of the museum's security guards realizes that the stranger is wearing a mask and arrests him, accusing him of being Lupin III. At that moment, Inspector Zenigata appears to arrest him and Lupin releases a gas through his sleeve to blind them, taking the opportunity to escape through the ceiling with the help of his harpoon. No longer wearing a mask, the thief climbs the chandelier and says goodbye while the security guards shoot in his direction. With the criminal out of the picture, the security guard who discovered Lupin asks to keep the diary and the inspector orders another policeman to accompany her, but when they arrive at the warehouse, the girl sprays a spray that erases the officer, allowing her to escape with the object. On the terrace, the girl breathes a sigh of relief when Lupin fishes the diary back out, starting a dispute over the object. During the fight, the girl slips on the edge and almost falls off the terrace, but Lupin manages to catch her at the last second. After his good deed, he tells her she wasn't born for it and jumps into the building across the street, but before he can escape, another thief called Fujiko appears in a helicopter and takes the diary, leaving Lupin alone to be captured by Inspector Zenigata. After escaping from the police by parachuting, Laetitia, the girl disguised as a security guard, calls her grandfather Lambert and tells him everything that happened, apologizing for her failure. After hearing everything she has to say, the old man tells her that Fujiko was working for him and that she's already bringing the diary, as well as calling his granddaughter useless. Somewhere far away, Fujiko meets up with Professor Lambert and hands over Bresson's diary, but as she is leaving with her reward, Geralt realizes that she has left a tracker hidden in the box and orders his men to arrest her. Meanwhile, Lupin is being taken to the penitentiary when his friends arrive with Mr. Bean's cart to save him. Driving backwards, Jigen punctures the tires of some vehicles and manages to hit the bolts of a sign while he's still driving, knocking the metal object into the middle of the road. With no time to brake, the police truck hits the sign and flips over, allowing Goemon to slash the vehicle in the air with his sword. With the truck split in half, Lupin throws himself into his friend's car and drives off while the inspector and his men just watch. Now that he's with his companions, Lupin suggests that they go after the diary, but Jigen and Goemon refuse, saying that there are only legends about what's inside. In his hiding place, Lambert takes the key from the locket and puts it in the lock, but for some reason he can't turn it and nothing happens. Frustrated with her failure, Laetitia goes home where she is surprised by Lupin, who shows her that he has implanted a tracker in her shoe. As his friends refuse to help him, he now invites Laetitia to help him recover the diary, showing her that he also has a locket with the key. As soon as she sees the object, Laetitia says she's going to change and runs to the bathroom to call her grandfather, telling him about the existence of a second key. Excited, Lambert says he'll give her another chance and asks her to take Lupin to him, promising to reward her if she does. With her grandfather's promise, Laetitia goes to Lupin and agrees to work with him, infiltrating a ship with the excuse that from there they will be able to reach the diary. After a while, the ship stops and the captain fires a flare, attracting the attention of a large cargo plane. While infiltrating the plane, Lupin and Laetitia see Lambert putting the diary in the safe and they go down to steal it. With the object in hand, they are almost discovered by the guards and Lupin tells her that they need to find a safe place to unlock the mechanism, stopping to do so in Lambert's room. With the two medallions, Lupin takes the keys and tries to open the safe, but he still has another security mechanism, an 8-digit password with 5 letters combined. While the thief thinks about what the combination should be, Laetitia puts in the key to unlock the diary and ends up activating a timer, giving them exactly 60 seconds to figure out the password before the diary explodes. After a while thinking about what it could be, Lupin decides to give it a go and, incredible as it seems, manages to unlock the safe for the first time. Now that she has access, Leticia begins to read the diary that talks about the eclipse, an artifact from an ancient civilization capable of generating infinite energy, which is hidden in Teotihuacan, Mexico. While Lupin is reading the diary, Leticia goes behind him and draws her gun, but the man already knew what she was planning and removed the ammunition without her realizing it. Lupin then talks to the soldiers and opens the door to go to them, which leaves Geralt impressed with his intelligence. Even so, the thief is alone and there is nothing he can do but surrender. With her mission complete, Leticia gives the diary to her grandfather and goes into his living room to talk, asking him to keep his end of the bargain. Lambert then says he's going to talk to the dean of Boston University, and Leticia shows him that she's already been in touch, and that she's even got a scholarship. Furious, Lambert begins to fight with his granddaughter, but after a while, he decides to let it go and says that once they have found the eclipse, she can study. At the back of the plane, Lupin is chained up next to Fujiko, allowing the woman to knock out the guards and free herself. Without the handcuffs, the girl puts on an aviator's outfit and steals the seaplane in the cargo compartment, opening the freighter's doors and escaping while Lupin stays behind. Finally free, the thief goes to Lambert's room and eavesdrops on his conversation with Geralt, discovering that they want the eclipse to deliver to the German general, who faked his defeat and has been hiding in Brazil since the fall of Berlin. Hearing everything behind the door, Leticia asks her grandfather if it's true and she says they can't do that, but Geralt says he has no time to lose and puts her out with a tranquilizer. With the girl unconscious, the man opens one of the plane's doors and throws her out, forcing Lupin to jump in to save her. But as he also has no parachute, there's nothing he can do. Just then, Fujiko appears with the seaplane and the two manage to hold on to the wings, but the problems are not over. As soon as they touch the seaplane, Lambert's freighter starts flying behind them and manages to hit the tail rotor. Nevertheless, Fujiko manages to stabilize the flight and Jigen arrives to rescue them, managing to get the three of them out of the seaplane before they crash into the ground. Not satisfied with the attack, the cargo plane returns and starts shooting at the car, leaving everyone on foot. Racing against time, Lupin gets into his car and calls for the inspector, who soon appears to arrest him. As soon as they arrive at the place, Zenigata and his men get out of the helicopter to capture the thief, but they only realize the trap when Lupin and the others have already stolen their aircraft. Desperate, the inspector jumps towards them and manages to catch himself with a climbing hook, but is tied up as soon as he enters the aircraft. Taking advantage of the situation, Lupin tells Zenigata everything and he agrees to help them, taking them to an Interpol platform to refuel the aircraft. While waiting for everything to be ready, Leticia wonders why her grandfather got involved with Gerald, and Lupin reveals that Lambert is not her grandfather, saying that he took her out of the orphanage only because she was a Bresson heiress, and might know the password. Confused, Leticia asks how he could know this, and Lupin reveals that the password for the safe was her name, a tribute to her grandfather Bresson. After the revelation, Lupin returns the locket and says that he stole it before they jumped, as well as showing that he also took Bresson's diary, leaving a book in its place. Now that he has the diary in his hands, Lupin finally recognizes the symbol on the cover and discovers that it was his grandfather who made the lock for the safe, which explains why he has the second key. While the good guys set off in search of the eclipse, Lambert and Geralt arrive in Teotihuacan and find the ruins where the artifact is, but when they try to enter the place, they end up activating a trap that crushes the body of one of their men. Unable to continue, Geralt blames Lambert for letting Lupin steal the diary and returns to the freighter saying that they should find another way in. Hearing everything from outside, Lupin and his friends take the opportunity to enter the ruins, and the inspector notices that an eyeball is missing from the door ahead, and that they are surrounded by several blue spheres that seem to fit into the missing space. As soon as they realize this, the gravity of the place is reversed and they start looking for the right eyeball. While he is resting, Jigen notices that all the spheres are facing in the direction of just one, and Lupin goes to catch it, which causes gravity to return to normal. With the object in hand, the thief manages to float and flies to the statue's eye, placing the eyeball and deactivating the trap. Now that it's safe, the group continues forward until they reach a place where there should be a bridge, but instead the passage to the other side is empty, filled only with particles of light that are forming an atom. Reading the clue in the diary, Leticia realizes that the riddle talks about a fallen star, and Fujiko immediately assumes that they need a meteorite, but as none of them have anything of the sort, Jigen says that they should go out and look for it and come back later. Suddenly, Goemon starts acting strangely, and the inspector suspects that the sword has been forged from meteorite iron, so they can use it to get to the other side. While the samurai refuses to hand over his sword, the particles of light behind him begin to react with the blade and form the bridge for them to reach the other side. With no choice, Goemon allows his friends to cross, but when it's his turn, he realizes that he won't be able to take his beloved katana with him and says goodbye. With everyone on the other side, Leticia reads the diary again and tells them that they are on elimination row. An extremely dangerous passage, but if someone manages to get through, it will disable all the other riddles and traps. Being the most agile of the group, Lupin enters the corridor and tries to cross, but is bombarded by beams of light as soon as he takes the first step. After seeing her friend fail, Leticia sees something across the hall and Lupin realizes that it's like his grandfather's hat. Figuring that he used the object to get to the other side, the thief grabs Jigen's hat and throws it forward, memorizing where each ray of light comes from. Thinking he can avoid them, Lupin fires his grappling hook and gets to the other side, dodging most of the lasers. After arriving safely on the other side, Lupin retrieves his grandfather's top hat and cane and opens access to the eclipse, but as soon as he crosses, Lambert appears with his men and surprise the whole group, saying that he was hiding and was just waiting for them to go through the riddles. With free access, Geralt and Lambert approach the eclipse and ask Leticia to hand over the diary, but the girl refuses, saying she won't obey him now that she knows he's not her grandfather. Now that she knows the truth, Lambert begins to humiliate her and tears open the envelope containing her scholarship, taking advantage of the moment when she bends down to take the book from her hands. Lambert puts the diary in the eclipse and activates the machine that floats out with them, breaking through the ceiling and causing the ruin to start collapsing. At that moment, Lupin's group manages to untie itself and runs for the exit, narrowly escaping being buried. Once on the surface, Lambert and Gerald put the eclipse inside the freighter and set off back to Paris, but the others refuse to allow this to happen and Jigen starts firing at the enemy aircraft, knocking off one of the freighter's wings. To deal with the other, Goemon cuts the wing in half with his katana and manages to bring the aircraft down, but Lambert doesn't give up and runs to the eclipse to activate it. Using the object's powers, the old man manages to create new ice wings that keep the freighter flying. Realizing that he has activated the eclipse, Lupin asks Fujiko to fly away, but there is no time. Lambert activates the artifact and fires a blast of energy that works like a mini black hole, collapsing in the air and generating an impact so great that it completely destroys the biome. Even in the middle of the storm, Fujiko manages to escape the impact and stabilize her flight. Unaware that they have survived, Lambert celebrates the power he has and decides to betray Gerald by burning the diary so that he can't use it. To demonstrate his power to the world, Lambert says he will blow up the city of Berlin, but Gerald refuses to allow it and decides to confront him, grabbing the old man by the head and throwing him on top of Leticia. Furious with the traitor, Gerald says that the only one who can take over the world is the German general and continues to beat Lambert, giving Leticia the opportunity to untie herself and try to deactivate the eclipse. To prevent this, Gerald draws his pistol and tries to shoot the girl in the back, but when he fires, Lambert steps in front of her and ends up giving his life to save the girl. While celebrating the victory, Gerald receives a radio message asking him to transport the eclipse to Brazil, saying that they have managed to locate the German general and that he wants to see the artifact in person. Like a true servant, Gerald begins to cry and obeys the order immediately, taking the object to his leader. Back in Brazil, Gerald begins to flatter the general and hands over his gun for him to see, opening the door for Leticia to run up to them and steal the pistol from his hand. While pointing the gun at the general, Leticia asks what they are going to do with the eclipse and ends up letting her guard down, allowing Gerald to disarm her. After the girl is taken away by the guards, Gerald takes his leader to the eclipse and starts showing him how the object works, getting the man so excited that he even gets up from his wheelchair. Confused, Gerald asks what happened to his legs and the German leader starts dancing, saying it must have been a miracle. Meanwhile, Leticia is being led away when the guard behind her lowers his gun and reveals that he is Jigen. At that moment, Inspector Zenigata opens the next door and reveals that they have transmitted a false communication for Gerald to take the eclipse there. Seeing all her friends there, Leticia asks where Lupin is and the inspector reveals that he is dressed as the German leader. When he realizes that he has been tricked, Gerald is furious and takes out his pistol to shoot Lupin in the head, but the thief was smarter and took out the ammunition when he held the gun earlier. Even so, Gerald is determined to continue with the plan and goes after Lupin, hitting him several times and lifting him up by the neck, but even so, the man manages to get the tip of the eclipse to pierce the hull of the aircraft and takes a parachute to escape. When the thief is about to jump, Gerald grabs him from behind and opens the parachute so that he is pulled towards the black hole, but Lupin manages to get rid of the backpack and hold onto one of the beams. To escape the black hole, the man climbs out of the aircraft and Gerald follows, squeezing Lupin's neck as he tries to retrieve the photo of his idol. Taking advantage of the man's obsession, Lupin manages to push him with his leg and get him sucked into the black hole. Exhausted and without a parachute, there is nothing the man can do but watch the eclipse consume the aircraft. After the freighter disappears into thin air, Lupin uses the ruin's eyeballs to control gravity and falls slowly, landing on the pier where he meets Leticia. While the two of them are talking, Jigen and Gomon show up in a speedboat to escape and Lupin says goodbye to Leticia, but before he leaves, he gives his friend the letter from college. Still confused, the girl asks how this is possible and he replies that he stole the thesis from his apartment and sent it to the college, getting her an even bigger discount. With that done, Lupin and his friends run away from the inspector while Leticia watches the sunset.